Great. Now we're going to talk about the 20th century. So, when you start talking about the Roaring '20s, there was a lot of confidence in business. In fact, everybody thought that business was going to take everyone to this kind of quality of life that had never been enjoyed on such a scale ever. You may be familiar with things like the Great Gatsby that kind of epitomizes the Roaring '20s. And you hear stories about, even the shoeshine boy was investing in stocks. I mean, there was so much faith in business. But once the Great Depression started, all that kind of got washed away. And so, again, during the Great Depression, there was a lot of criticism of business. However, during World War II, business was seen as kind of the bulwark that had protected America, and that confidence in business was restored, and that confidence in business lasted all through the 1950s. But in the 1960s, business, the faith of the public in business started to collapse again. And there were four main movements that were directed against businesses and kind of led to this collapse in confidence. You have the civil rights movement. That basically wound up going after businesses. You have the consumer rights movement. We'll talk more about that later in this course, as well as civil rights. You have the environmentalist movement. And you have the Vietnam War opposition. These all represented societal movements that undermined the authority of business in society. And it was kind of a collapse of confidence. And during the 1960s, you actually had the New Progressive movement. And the New Progressives were kind of like the old progressives. The New Progressives also said that there should be radical corporate reform, just like did the old progressives. It was kind of a resurgence of an older movement. They tried to take advantage of the connotations of progressivism as much as possible. Now, on an international level, particularly in the 20th century, you've also seen a rise in a variety of other new business critics. One is non-governmental organizations, or NGOs. Non-governmental organizations are typically voluntary non-profit organizations that are not affiliated with any sort of government. And they can be used to animate civil society, and they can generate actions that transcend national borders. By the way, are you familiar with the term of civil society? Some good examples I forgot to mention of NGOs. The one that I think of the most is like International Red Cross, Red Crescent. I think that's one of the greatest examples. That's an organization that delivers aid throughout the world to individuals who have been hurt, affected by national disasters. Doctors Without Borders is another great example. But again, they can undermine the authority of business and government alike. So civil society, that's that zone of ideas and discourse and action, heavily infused with progressive values, and transcends these kind of traditional national societies and encourages a focus on global issues. So there are a variety of other kind of new, we mentioned kind of these new critiques are new actors who criticize business. Some of the devices that, in particular, NGOs and other actors in civil society can mobilize to attack business would be things like consumer boycotts. So don't buy a certain product from our company. They can generate shareholder attacks, so mobilizing the owners against those companies. You may be familiar with someone like Michael Moore that encourages harassment, ridicule, and shaming behaviors. PETA also does that. And there can also be kind of corporate campaigns against rivals. So we've gone through, basically, 3,000 years of history in just a few minutes. The point is not to give you a whole lot of depth, but the message that I want you to take away is that over time, profit-seeking behavior has been something that started off as something that was considered suspicious behavior. When businesses were seen to be giving back or benefiting society, that suspicion seems to be allayed in some way. However, it almost appears that when economic times turn tough, there begins a renewed suspicion of business activity. So, of course, from a corporate social responsibility perspective, the moral of this story is that corporations should acknowledge these kind of obligations to society. They should work to take care of their communities so that they can avoid some of these civil society actions that can be directed against corporations. But we're going to talk more about that in our modules on corporate social responsibility. So I'm looking forward to seeing you then.